all these topics, they're lifelong things. And it's not just a get it and go. It's like, okay, someone says something and maybe it makes sense and it resonates. Like, I'll use my favorite example, Socrates, his famous quote, "To be truly knowledgeable, first you must know that you know nothing." Oh, okay, that resonates. There's a lot there, but it's not just hearing the words and putting it back into like a bank account to get out whenever we think we need it. It's a meditation. And I'm probably going to use that word a little bit more in this talk, because these things in a habitat, in a natural habitat, in a natural ecosystem, there's cycles, key part, and there's ebb and flow. So these meditations, these things that resonate with us, like growing healthy mental habitat, that in itself can be a meditation and broad spectrum term, but to understand that we are giving, intention to our own mental ecosystem, to our own mental habitat. We have some autonomy there. We're in a giant, amazing ecosystem on the planet, and there's a lot of things that are happening, that they're happening, whether we like it, want it, whatever. That's how we grew up. But within our own ecosystem, we have the ability to we have some of the ability to connect with our own volition and our own autonomy. And that's where we have the ability to create change. And of course, because it all flows out from within, right? One of these common challenges in contemporary society, and that's all I talk about, is the challenges in contemporary society. That's the hot topic. That's what's going on. The challenges in contemporary society. Oh, how are we going to make change? Look in the mirror. Societal is a reflection of the individual. It's always going to be that. The societal average can't be more than the average of the individual. So, if we see problems in society, it's all our own. It stems from within. And a lot of that is simple understanding, right? If we've got challenge, what's the first part of the challenge? Is actually understanding what the challenge is. And so, we're using these words, we're using these terms, and, there's a lot of psychiatric terms, and, narcissism, scarcity mindset, contemporary society, colonial society, habitat, environment. So, but all good placeholder terms. Okay. So, and I have my notes here, and I like to kind of shoot from the hip and then check the notes, make sure I'm not missing anything. Here's the official introduction. Growing healthy mental habitat is aligning our internal mental habitat with our external physical environment. It's understanding where the natural processes like challenge, ebb flow, cycles, sustainability, connection to everything are flowing within us, since we're in a natural ecosystem, and consciously adding to and being present there. So growing healthy mental habitat, what does it mean? We kind of just went over that a little bit. It's intention, understanding that we have the capacity for some autonomy and some of our own volition, between our ears, in our mental habitat. Oh, in our mental habitat, that's something that's it's really adjustable. And when we adjust our mental habitat, a lot of other things follow along with that. We feel better physically, if for no other reason that mentally we can add to our habitat, add to our understanding that, hey, I need to get out and walk more. I need to eat better. That's a mental aspect that we adjusted our mentality that has a direct positive impact on our physical. And then when our physical and our mental is doing good, then our emotional wellness, kicks in too. And then we've got our physical, mental, emotional, and then of course our spiritual kicks in. So all these things, out of all of our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, our mental, I think is the easiest way to, well, one, have conversations like this. We got to be thinking about what we're talking about, and using all these words and using all these parallels and analogies and that sort of thing. But that's our alignment tool. Our cognitive function is our alignment tool. Understanding, here's a little meditation that we've been using here recently. Understanding is the soil, an idea is the seed, intention is the water, and then action is the sunlight. I told you that there'd be planting parallels going on here. So understanding in the soil, understanding is the soil. So like we said, if we have a challenge, we have to understand what that challenge is. We have to understand, what are variables. And this is just like embracing the challenge 101, or understanding the challenge. What are all the aspects? What are the challenges within the challenge? How the challenge get here? All these things. When we're adding to our understanding, we're adding to the foundation of our understanding. We're growing our foundation of information related to said challenge. So the more we understand, that's a bigger foundation. And I like to say it's like a bigger target also. It gives us something to relate to. And when we talk about habitat, an idea is something that we relate to. We have an idea. Okay, so then what is the understandings around that idea? How much cognitive energy have we invested in understanding the idea? Have we put X idea through our objective thought process, for instance? So did we plant seeds today? Did we plant seeds 2 weeks ago? Are we going to wait another 2 weeks and plant seeds? There's a lot going on there. And is the weather? What's the weather like? Oh, well, historically it's like this, but now the predictions are saying it's going to be this. And here's this plant that's, is it for this specific environment? Or maybe, if we're planting tomatoes, what do they, or whatever, it doesn't matter what seed, where is it exactly from? So anyways, growing understanding around everything that's the soil. And then we say the idea is the seed. So intention is the water. And when we give intention to it, that's the intention to, it's also growing more understanding. So we have an idea. So it takes intention to learn more about our idea. Right? So intention. So, and of course, all these cycles interconnect, and intention. And that's what we're doing right now. We're intentional about having conversations like this so we can grow more understanding, right? And then, of course, that's an idea in itself that, I want to have more understanding. I want to learn more about human behavior and this habitat, and where does natural habitat and our human-centric habitats intersect. So that's an idea, and we give intention to that idea, and here's this thing that I'm going to do, and then we click the link button on Zoom, and that's the action item, and then here we are. Cycles. So that growing healthy mental habitat, understanding is the soil, idea is the seed, intention is the water, action is the sunlight. I think that's just an easy thing to add to our mental habitat. That's an intention to maybe write that down somewhere, put it on the refrigerator, make up a little parallel, say, okay, so I have an idea. Okay, great. Well, an idea without soil, without foundation, without water isn't going to do anything. Right. And let's see here. I'm trying to think of how many different ways to say this without offending a mass population that's not here. A lot of people have an idea but they don't nurture that idea. They don't have a foundation for their idea. They don't put their idea through an objective thought process. They don't put any intention into figuring out if that idea is accurate, if it works. There's something to be said for instincts, and does something resonate, like the Socrates, to be truly knowledgeable, we first must know nothing. That resonates, but then what does it mean? And to give intention there. So I'm going to go through those and a little bit more. So soil, let's talk about soil conditions. All right. And so I think everyone that I can see knows me and knows I have background in fisheries, forestry, wildlife, natural science. So I like to say, this is natural science applied to the human that just happens to live in, on the planet. Funny coincidence there. If we were to say organic matter, what's the organic matter in our gray matter? All right. Mental habitat. Bear with me. Mental habitat. Imagine that. Oh, where's the meditation? I'll do the meditation now, actually, and it'll help a little bit. Imagine that in our mental habitat, right? And it's a little bit internal, a little bit external. This gray matter doesn't need to be, we're not talking, scientifically independent study data here, but we're saying, our mind, our mentality, what all's happening in there. If we do a mirror of our natural habitat, we have natural habitat internally. And so for meditation, a lot of times I'll tell people, do this creative imaging, and in your mind, close your eyes. Here is meditation. Close your eyes, and in your mind, there's a stream and a riverbank, and there's trees, and there's leaves falling through from the trees, and those leaves are accumulating and decomposing over many years and many cycles, and they're creating soil, and they're creating new habitat. And in that soil, seeds fall and birds come along and deposit seeds. And then in the spring, there's new life. And the river's got times of high water and times of low water. And there's fish in the river, and the fish hide behind the rocks in times of high water. And they come up into the shallows when there's sunlight, when things start to get warm. And of course, there's the days and the seasons and all these cycles. So to understand that's mental habitat, and then we can go to an actual river in the external world and see those same things. So if we connect some understandings from our internal habitat to our external habitat and vice versa, and we can see, because all parts of us have cycles. And we are a habitat. We're in an environment, and we are an environment. So if all these things that we observe externally in the external world, if we observe connection to everything, sustainability, balance, ebb, flow, cycles, and challenge, those are happening within us too. To understand, so now we have these leaves falling, this soil building up, and that's the understanding. The more we understand, that's like these cycles of these leaves falling, that's adding to the soil. So organic matter versus inorganic matter. Here's the part that we know I'm going to go to, is historical evolution of our species versus contemporary state of our species. Our species evolved with no planes, trains, or automobiles, right? No computers, no anything. Okay, so, and this is just a straight science, and to look at our species through the lens of what we call natural science or wildlife biology. How did the species evolve? What habitat did the species evolve in? And if there's a problem with the species, what are variables? Right. And here's when we did limits of science, we talked about the scientific method and we say, what are variables? What are variables in the species environment? Well, if we look at it on a timeline and a species has evolved for 300,000 years or 3 million years, again, using contemporary science is a little bit of a rough placeholder, and, understanding asterisks, the limits of science, but science says Homo sapien, 300,000 years, Homo genus, 3 million years. Well, and then everything that it took to get to that point. So, pick one, 300,000 years. Our species has not had any kind of technology until the last couple hundred. And everyone was, I say everyone with a few exceptions, most people were hunter-gatherers, up until when, agrarian age and animal husbandry, roughly 10,000 years. And of course, there's little bits of those things, and we're not going to get into the whole human evolution thing, but the main concept is to take into perspective how long the human species has been hunter-gatherer versus, wow, look what we have now. Look at all the technology. So organic, relating to life in an organic setting, just this is the way the species has evolved since from forever. And now there's different things in the environment. Now there's manufactured metals and there's electronics and all these different things, all in a pretty short time span. If you look at it, on a linear timeline like that. And for sure, nothing else on the planet has ever done that. You don't see dolphins building spaceships or octopus or whales or, or pigs or any of the other, animals that have shown some intellect. Crows aren't building computers. And that's a whole nother ball of wax why. But just to say, to keep it simple, there's inorganic items in our external habitat. And of course, if we're relating to them externally, we're also relating to them internally. And so organic matter basically is soil. All the things that are naturally occurring, in the forest, it would be leaf litter is what they call organic matter, even though technically everything's organic, right? Except for the computers and such. So with the soil, it's important to understand what we're relating to on a natural level and what are new constructs, what are inorganic constructs, what are contemporary constructs, what are constructs, what are human-centric things that are made up just within the past, mostly a couple hundred years, up to 10,000 years. The mass domestication of animals is one. That's one thing to think about, domestication, because when we think about domestication, we think about all the diversity that a natural animal had in its natural habitat versus being taken out of that. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on there with limiting the diversity that the cognitive function developed in. Common things. I know everyone's heard me say this. Written law, printed currency, clocks. Simple, but they are things that we relate to in contemporary society on a daily basis that don't reflect natural cycles. And I'm not saying good or bad here. I'm just saying in the classic sense. They do not reflect natural cycles. So if we understand some of these things, we understand how limited most people, if you were to do a psychological profile about the cognitive energy most people spend is going to be on contemporary government, printed currency, and clocks. So that's not an organic thought process. And we say linear thought process, very, very, three-dimensional, it just limits it, so limiting. And so understanding our mental habitat, what is the structure that our mental habitat's relating to is where we used to relate to. We had to understand all the different seasons and how all the different plants and all the different animals all related to the different seasons. And there'd be some of this plant here and some of this animal here and some of this animal here during this time and some of this animal during this time. We actually had to understand all the habits and habitats of everything around us. Okay, key moment. So shouldn't we do that for ourselves?
Repeat that.
Yes. The entirety of the human existence and all the other animals in existence have evolved understanding the habits and habitats of everything around them. Shouldn't we use that lens to look inward also? Use that to look at ourselves. We develop that way. Intimate understanding of everything around us. Just say the humans are only here because of our cognitive function, our potential for intelligence. Understanding all those environments sharpen that tool. Our brain is our most important tool. Our brain let us understand how to nap rocks and create fire and work together. Oh, big key. We had to work together. We had to work together. So, and then here's some more lessons. What did we do? Right? Objective thought processing. What's wrong with the species? What did we do? How did we used to live versus what's going on now? That working together is a key component. But yeah, so eliminating the diversity that sharpened our cognitive function, going back that our brain is our most important tool. And we had all this diversity and all these things that we had to keep track of understanding habits and habitat of everything around us. And that's gone for the most part. Now, what are people relating to? Printed currency, written law, clocks. Printed currency doesn't hold intrinsic value, doesn't have natural lifespan. Written law is not natural law. It's not balance, ebb, flow, moon phases, cycles, challenge of life or death, connection to everything. And clock, not reflecting natural lifespans, organic lifespans, not reflecting natural cycles. So examples of inorganic matter in our mental habitat. And so everything relates to structure, right? We need to, just like we said earlier, the fish hides behind the rock in high water, and in slack water, it'll come off into the shallows. Is the water high or is it the water slack? You need to know these things to know where the fish is. So we're relating to structure, but instead of relating to rocks in the river and currents and this kind of thing, we're related to, what do I need to do to not break the law, earn printed currency, and within a certain time frame. Just relating, just how many times do most people look at the clock versus look at the sun? Again, it's just taking the organism off its evolutionary trajectory. So you could reverse engineer this from a scientific point, from a wildlife biology point, and you could say, geez, well, I would bet that that species is not doing very well because it was taken out of its natural habitat. You know, when we were kids, did we ever catch tadpoles and just put them in a regular tank with tap water and watch them die? You know?
Or a cup, just a cup,
Yeah.
a cup.
Yeah. And nothing does good in its natural, outside of its natural habitat. When you take something out of its natural habitat, it doesn't flourish, you know, especially, you know, big mammals that need more habitat and that have a wider range and, you know, more diversity. You know, you might be able to take an earthworm and put it in 10 square feet of soil and not see any difference. But yeah, when we take the whales, especially the, you know, the orcas, the dolphins, the bears, um, everything, nothing does good in an altered, restricted environment. So, you know, again, looking at our species through the lens of like the most basic biology, you know, if you take someone's blood out of them and just leave it in a petri dish, everything's there is going to die because it's not in its natural habitat. How hard is it to transfer organs and keep organs alive, you know, outside of natural habitat? And you might be technically keeping them alive according to contemporary science, but look at all the variables and look at all the variables that can't be replicated uh, by humans because humans grew up in these environments. So a little bit of back to the habitat. Oh, so inorganic matter in the soil. You know, think about what's natural and what's inorganic. And I think that most people sense that. That's an instinctual thing. Our our species, you know, grew up a certain way, and we've got that genetic memory, and that genetic memory, that instinct says this isn't right. It's not right. And then we can point to a million different ways where it's not right. Uh, not all in this next hour and a half, though. So basically, we have shitty existing soil in this life. The things that we relate to in the mental habitat is just it's doesn't have any diversity, right? Natural biology 101. And if we take a sample of soil from an intact ecosystem out in the forest, there's going to be a myriad of intact microorganisms working within that soil. If we take some from your average front yard, it's going to be limited diversity. And here's some natural science terms. Is species diversity. You want a big species diversity. I know there's a couple people here that I think I know who's behind the the labels, the Samsung and all that kind of stuff. I think we have some more wildlife biologists on board too. Yeah, so contemporary society is devoid of organic, devoid of organic, a lot of things, devoid of organic thought process. Relating to inorganic items is not gonna, you know, is not gonna be conducive to natural thought process. Um, and of course, you know, we're beholden to ebb, flow, and challenge, and all these kind of things, and you know, relating to inanimate objects consistently, bad, bad. Okay, isn't that how they say it? Okay,
Okay.
relating to inorganic objects consistently, bad. Okay,
So no poop in plastic in our soil. We want a diversity of, what did you say?
organic matter.
Yeah. So like okay.
So diversity, just diversity, and real organic matter instead of plastic. We want organic matter. There's another thing, you know, taking from taking from Tree Care 101, hardscape. If we go and look at a tree, oh, by the way, I'm an arborist for my day job still. If I look at a tree and look down and there's hardscape, there's cement over the root system, it's like, oh, guess what? There's no leaves falling, decomposing. So that's a thing. Um, and if you think about what to use that a little bit of creativity, a hardscape, a hardscape, if someone's got like a hard mind, if they've got a closed mind, a non-pliable mind, they're not letting anything organic in, right? A little bit of creativity here. I said we're going to do some meditations, but think, does that person have, a hardscape over their ecosystem? Yeah. But okay, relating to inanimate items in contemporary society, that's a hardscape over our ecosystem. That's an unnatural border between us and organic understandings and organic processes.
I have a reggae friend that says, "Don't panic, it's organic." So in that case, we will be like, "Is it organic?"
Is it truly? Yeah. Is it truly organic? Is it truly organic? And there's a nice little rabbit hole to go down there, is connecting back to our organicness. Um, okay, so anybody catches, it's organic. Okay. Connecting to that. And when we say disengage from linear mindset and to do our own work and to really flesh out, here's the intention part, right? Here's the seed. The seed is the idea to get ourselves back in line with natural processes. So first, we got to get all the contaminants out of our soil. We have to get all the inorganic items out of our soil. We have to get all of the ideologies that are, welcome to America. And all contemporary societies, all colonial societies have ideologies based on mandatory behavior and huge complex government structures and industry and printed currency and clocks, government mandated behavior, printed currency, clocks. Pretty simple, but not natural. So to consciously understand that there's some misgivings there, we'll use that term, there's some misgivings there, and set those aside for our meditation. Put the societal constructs, those contemporary constructs, those inorganic items aside, and reconnect to natural cycles. And we can use that meditation of, we have a river in our mind. A mind is a stream side, and there's a myriad of different ecosystems and plants losing their foliage and fish going upstream and spawning and dying and returning as nutrients to the stream and nutrients to the trees and all these natural ecosystems. And I think that's a real powerful meditation. I try not to be too woo-woo, but there is a thing, we do have that part to us to use our creativity and heal that way and realign with reality, because that's what we need. This is what I say to people more about habitat, a little bit of a refresher from the habitat we did a couple of weeks ago. So when I talk to people about trees, I always give everybody like a 101, like this is how trees work. In a natural setting, trees lose their leaves accumulate, decompose. That's what provides proper soil structure and nutrients for the tree. So, there's a lot of different things in the cycle there, and a lot of things about that soil. So when we talk about having an idea, so it's kind of, and all these things are interconnected. because maybe, we have an understanding, but is that understanding or we have information, right? Let's use that term. Let's say we have information, and maybe that information is taking the place of understanding. So maybe we have information and we think that's the soil, or some people think that's the soil, but that's not information. So that's poor soil. And so you can put a bad idea in bad soil and it seems like it matches up, right? So we're doing some freehand psychology here to understand a large portion of the contemporary society. If your ideology, if your poor soil is based on government money clocks, human centric, if your mental habitat is based on human centric ideologies and wants, right? Don't we want to not have to scrounge around for food? Don't we want to just be able to go to the grocery store? Don't we want to just be able to turn on water? Well, not if you understand how all these things actually work. I guarantee it. Maybe I'll get back to that. But the thing is that to have ideologies, there's a lot of more ideologies, and misinformation will fit on ideologies. To have an idea, and then we want to grow understanding around the idea. So the idea is the seed. So we say, okay, I have an idea. In order to grow this idea, I have to have some understanding. That's some cognitive thought process. And then, that's the intention. So right away, we need to be watering that seed with intention. And then then that grows the understanding. So the soil, there's always soil accumulating. And, I just kind of put these things together, but they're all really super close together. And not really separate, but just to understand, just to give us some concepts that we can kind of resonate with, hopefully. The key to the growing part is the intention. Okay, so this is the seed. The key to the growing part is the intention. Actually, the first part is the idea. Then we realize the need for healthy soil to grow our idea. This is critical. Keeping healthy soil is critical, but that in itself is an idea or meditation. See how interconnected these things are. It's important to understand what ideas we want to grow and which ones we don't. It's important that our ideas are compatible. That way they form symbiotic relationships in our mental habitat and give back to the soil, our foundation, just like trees losing their leaves. So we have an idea and we need to give attention to the idea, and that's creating soil at the same time. So all these things are happening at the same time. And they form symbiotic relationships. If we have an idea, we need to nourish that idea. We need to feed that idea. And then that's another way that I like to use the term meditation. If we have a meditation, and in this case, meaning something that we want to grow, an idea that we want to grow, okay? Let's say I want to quit sugar. I want to quit sugar, quit refined sugar, but I'm a junk food junkie right now. Well, start slow. Just have that seed. Hold that seed for a while, right? Grow that relationship with the seed. Grow that relationship with the meditation, with the idea. So hold the idea. An idea, again, so a lot of people, I'm sorry to digress so much, but a lot of people have what I call bank account brain. And they look at like information as like, oh, I store it and forget about it and then get it back when I need it. But that's not understanding. That's a misgiving about how people actually work. The real thing is we're connected to everything, right? Connection to everything. I'm sure a lot of us know some good words for that. We're connected to everything. And so our relationships with our ideas is a whole energetic exchange, right? Because energy is our first currency. We're exchanging energy with everything. Everything's exchanging energy. So that's that energetic connection to an idea. So I want to quit refined sugar, and I'm a junk food junkie now. So first, I'm just going to hold that idea. Hold that idea. And if you hold that idea,
While you eat cookies.
no, just let it down while you're eating cookies. Just here's lessons from addiction. Just eat the cookies, pick the idea back up after you're done with the cookies, and don't do
The
ebb and
seed.
flow, ebb and flow. Let yourself don't beat yourself up while you're off the wagon.
That's part of planting the seed.
What, beating yourself up?
No, sitting there thinking about, okay, I'm going to stop doing this. I don't want to eat any more sugar.
Well,
I'm diabetic. My birthday, no birthday cake from now on.
man, I'm glad you said something. By the way, it's
Happy
Gray's birthday.
birthday.
It's Gray's
Yeah.
birthday. It's Gray's birthday today. I actually meant to say something at the beginning of this.
Oh, I don't care about birthdays now.
Yeah,
Who
you
cares
do.
about linear timeline? We gotta get
Anyways,
off that.
You can follow the
happy
moon.
birthday. I'm going to say it to you
Thank
like a
you.
million times when we get off the phone here, just say so it's not forgotten. So we have the seed. We keep intention to this idea, a long process. If we're implementing new ideas, that idea is the seed. Keep intention. And then, oh, you know what? Some understanding helps. I'm going to need some soil. Why do I want to quit refined sugar? Because it's bad for me. Oh, okay, good. How many different ways is it bad for you? What are the effects? Because it's bad for you. Oh, yeah, I'm going to die soon. Well, maybe, but also even worse than that is you might grow old and be sick the whole time.
Mm.
So let's do things that are going to be healthy for us. Oh, because I want to be healthy. And when I'm healthy, I feel better. And I can give back and be part of natural cycles of give and receive. So, there's so much wellness in that. But like understanding, if I say, well, what's this guy talking about colonialism and why is America messed up and all this kind of stuff and all this kind of stuff? Follow along. I'll give a whole bunch of different, understandings to why this doesn't work. But basically, the easy one is that it's not in line with the way our species evolved. And well, how else do we work? Yeah, I know. Bad faith conversations aside, one thing at a time, the species is off its evolutionary trajectory. That's just simple information. You don't need to do anything. Just let it sit there. But that's according to all the science that we have. But if we build some understandings on, oh, I don't want to just be relating to the clock, not saying anything. I'm not for this project. I'm not even saying anything's bad with those. I just don't want my mind to be going to the clock, to the printed currency, to the law all the time. I'll go to work, make some money, make sure, I'm there when I tell people I'm going to be there and, try to keep my speeding down to within 20 or 30 miles of the actual speed limit, when possible. It's not like we're not going to do those things, but the first step is understanding, some things about those that we just don't want our brain going to those three things when there's no reason. We can use our brain for other things. We can spend our cognitive functions energy on so many other things. So I'm gonna why I'm not going to go into all the why. There's a million different reasons why we don't want to just be just our mentality focused on those non-natural things and to be, oh, time, money, clocks. That's not a rich life at all. So at least let's add some diversity, make sure that our cognitive function isn't just reverting to those three things all day over and over and over again. And let's say back to the sugar, let's say I want to do something for my own wellness. Building that soil is understanding all the different aspects that all the different aspects of what my wellness is, and all the different things that I can include to my understanding that, oh, if I quit eating sugar, my numbers are going to get better, right? My weight's likely to go down, and I'm going to feel better. The other thing is, all these intentions of growth, we're embracing challenge. And challenge is like one of the key things of fundamentals of life, and really, really void in contemporary society. Again, since we used to be hunter-gatherers, and all those challenges, on the regular that we grew through and adapted to. So now if we can take some extra intention and ideas and embrace those and nurture those and reacquaint ourselves to challenge and grow our own challenge. And there's autonomy again. There's our own volition. There's taking our wellness into our own hands. We don't want to just go to the doctor, doc, fix me, doc, fix me. That's giving away the only power we have. So let's do our own. Let's do everything we can on our own. And then if we need help, yeah. But work on that. Work on our healthy ecosystems, work on our healthy habitats.
A lot of people don't think that this relates to their diabetes, and it definitely does.
Right.
Growing healthy mental habitat will
100%.
Diabetes right up.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it's like cross training. And thanks, Kraig. I'm glad that you brought that up. Because
it shows in the labs. They check your blood, and it shows in the labs. Growing healthy mental habitat will fix that diabetes right up, because it grows boundaries and what you eat.
Right. Exactly. Growing. Right. That boundaries is all connected to this. Yes. Great. Go ahead. You can do this. You can do this, class.
Now diabetes is doing better. You go ahead.
And some pain too, huh?
Yes. Pain levels way down.
Right.
Severe chronic pain for my whole life.
Right. And there's someone else here that we've been having that conversation about too, and pain and working with doctors and that kind of thing. But the healthy mental habitat is, when we do that, we start exercising doing these things and these meditations and growing these challenges, growing our healthy relationship with challenge. That's all a meditation. That's all the seed is. I want to have a healthy relationship with challenge. I want autonomy, all these things. It's all habitat. It's all organic. It's all understanding how all these things connect. And boundaries. The first boundary is with ourself. And to grow that boundary, you know what? I'm going to wait till 8 o'clock to eat my first Twinkie. And then I'm going to wait till 12 o'clock to eat my first Twinkie. It's growing boundaries with ourselves and adding to that understanding of why, and embracing along the way how good it feels just to be embracing challenge and to do our intention. Because amazingly enough, there's some natural emotional wellness that comes with being on the right track, with paying attention to ourselves. Oh, by the way, aren't we sharpening our cognitive function again? The most important tool of the human. All these things, all these cycles are so closely interconnected, and they all work off each other. Remember that symbiotic relationship that our ideas in our soil and all these things work together. So, yes, we're having conversations about grow healthy mental habitat, which is really a foundational this is soil in itself. This whole thing is soil. This is a foundational understanding. And if we have a little bit of meditation, give ourselves a little bit of, a little bit of understanding, a little bit of concepts, a little bit of concepts here, a little bit of concepts here, have some ideas, water the seeds, and we start watering that seed, adding some more context, some more actual understanding. And then when it comes time to not pick up a Twinkie, we already have a relationship built with the way that we want to go. We already have this habitat. We're starting to grow this habitat. Everything that I just said is growing healthy mental habitat and aligning with our wellness. And here are some specific things that we can do and some understandings, and they all come together and they all relate to, external environment. It's all natural. It's all organic. I'm just saying some different things that are all naturally occurring. And of course they relate to our, how we function as a species. Um, so intention. Now that's the part that takes up a lot of energy. Intention is valuable. Oh, then we say intention is the water. Water is life, right? Henry Tony. Um, so, but that takes up a lot of energy. So when I was talking about that, a seed, if you're trying something new, you don't have to force it. Just hang on to it, build a relationship with that idea. But as we give intention, we also grow our ability to give intention. And also, since we have limited energy, just like everything else, we're limited, we're a finite resource within ourselves. Let's not let our energy go to inanimate objects. So when our energy is going to, I'm just going to use the same tired things, but government money clocks. When my mental habitat's going there, it could be going to other things. It could be going to my wellness, could be going to, changing my diet, increasing exercise, doing some natural herbal supplements to help offset any, diagnosed medical condition. And on that note, growing healthy mental habitat, there's a thing about um, building new neural pathways and transcending even physical things too. And again, for our mental, what's in our mental habitat? So that's a boundary. So that's an intention. That's a meditation. What's in our mental habitat? Doctors have a lot of good things, but also there's a lot of placeholders, and doctor might say, well, you've got this, you've got this, you've got this. You don't need to listen. Let me back up. Listen to the doctor, but don't let that be the only thing in your mental habitat, right? Remember diversity. If the doctor says you have this, and that's the only thing, that's not a diverse mental habitat. Let's also add the doctor says you have this, but also you have the potential, at least the potential to do some things on your own to override that. And like you said, like Grace said, there's a lot of things a lot of people can do to really work on their clinical diagnosis, whether it's diabetes or I mean that's a big one, or whatever kind of disease. There's herbal remedies, and healthy mental habitat and emotional wellness and spiritual wellness is always going to have a huge positive effect with our physical. And I know there is lots of clinical studies that will back that statement up a lot. So all these things, and understanding that we have the ability to change, that we have the ability to grow. Oh, okay. Yes, we have the ability to grow. That takes intention. Grow ourselves, understand ourselves. I got a whole nother big workshop on, on that. um, but that's that intention. No, that's not going to work very well. It gets dark and I can't see my notes.
You
But
need
that intention is a huge part. So don't just let your intention, don't let your focus just go where the fuck ever. Boundaries. Think about here's another idea. And we just gave you a little bit of soil for growing this idea. Is boundaries with where your energy goes, right? So if you're giving energy to bad ideas, bad situations, etc., that's taking energy that could be to something else. So, there is a little bit of understanding about our autonomy and about maintaining autonomy with where our energy goes. I know I need to put a little bit of energy out to printed currency government clocks, but I don't want all my energy going there,
bless
right?
you.
Let's keep that to a minimum. I know I'm going to have to deal with some critics, but let's keep that to a minimum. I know there's going to be challenges that are not natural challenges. Let's keep them to a minimum. So, where our energy grows, where our intention goes, remember that the soil is the understanding is the soil, idea is the seed, intention is the water. That intention, that water is really super important. We want to watch where that goes. So yeah, and staying connected to our intention. Not like, for example, now lots of ideas. We're not going to just grab them all and be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Whatever their intention. If something resonates with us, we nurture them and we hang on to that. And then it comes out with, if we nurture it and we keep intention with an idea or with something we heard, we grow some more understanding around it. So it's kind of like a lot of times we have the seed and then we give the soil. But understanding and give space. Another thing is space. With the tree, roots spread out way past the part that you see above ground, right? So these words I'm saying, if I'm a tree, these words are the above ground part, but the roots, the understanding is way spread out, right? I mean, that's kind of what we do when we're speaking, right? We condense, or at least try, trying to condense things, but based on a lot of understanding and a lot of different experiences, right? And then, oh, that's how we grow. We have these experiences and we're understanding the cause and effects of our experiences and trying to, organize those things. So, um, staying connected to our intention, even just, and I'm trying to think of a good way to say this, but it's kind of like a sense the energy on how much intention you have to give to an idea if we want to grow, because we can't, well, we can overwater too. So if there's not enough soil, then you can still throw all the water at a seed and it's not going to grow. So it needs soil. There needs to be a balance. We can't just say, oh, I'm going to quit sugar and all of a sudden, stop. Sometimes we can do that. And if we can, great. But also a lot of times it's more of a long process, especially if it's, more of an internal thing. And like, quitting, substance, sugars, cigarettes, alcohol, et cetera, ideology, especially, when we're immersed in a society that's, very enabling. Let's see what I have written down about water now. Staying connected to our intention is remembering to water the seed. Keeping intention connected to our ideas is the water. However, sometimes in life, and especially in contemporary society, it's hard to get water to our seeds or intention to our ideas, especially the ones that choose wellness over illness in a toxic environment. If contemporary society is spraying pesticides all around you, it's hard to keep those pesticides from drifting into your mental habitat and disrupting the delicately balanced natural ecosystem in your mental habitat. Remember the boundaries with the collective meditation intention? Here it is again. So that's saying understanding our connection to everything. And so we're doing our internal work, we're connected to ourselves, but we're still connected to everything else too. And a lot of people miss these part, and that's why that boundaries with the collective is that's why the boundaries with the collective is really important. Because we do have to understand that, we're in an environment that's, not conducive to mental wellness. So understand that since, we're intimately and infinitely attached to everyone else. So we're susceptible to collateral damage, frankly. And so understanding these things in our habitat, understanding also how like the collective conscious and, for lack of a better term, this type of person isn't really processing their wellness. Who's really on their wellness program, who's really intentional about their wellness and who's not. If most of society doesn't care how many Twinkies they eat in a day, and we're in most of society, they're not very supportive, right? So community, having a good community, and then obviously the examples of the people we hang around in our community and our external habitat. So we can't just grow a healthy internal habitat and not relate to our external habitat also, and our external environment, because we're in it, right? It's like a fish can swim around all he wants and thinks he wants to be dry, but as long as he's in water, he's going to be wet. So we are in an environment that's not conducive to wellness. So those boundaries with the collective, it's really super important. And I know that might, if you're not familiar with hearing it, or even if you are, that's a challenge. Keeping the boundaries with the collective. Where is me? Where is my ecosystem? Where does my ecosystem mesh with other people's ecosystem? Because there's not really a line, right? There is and there isn't. Both those things happening at the same time. That's why it's important to, when we say disengage from linear mindset, that's a good example. Both those things and many more are happening at the same time. We have our individual autonomy and we're affected by other people also. Our individual autonomy and our wellness helps other people grow their wellness. Their illness is a challenge to our wellness. So those things are happening at the same time, and placeholder words. And there's some things that's I think we talk about the limits of words too. Words are only able to reflect value in certain circumstances up to a certain point. So we use words to reflect the concepts, and sometimes they're going to be more suited, and sometimes less suited, and that's just a naturally occurring variable. So keeping connected with our intentions, we call that consciousness. When you hear people talking about being conscious, it's all about awareness and the intention to stay vigilant and in line with our wellness efforts and our conscious connection to natural laws in our environment, and both natural, organic, and inorganic. So we have to be conscious of organic things, of our wellness and our intention to wellness. But at the same time, we have to be conscious of external challenges to our wellness. Also, of course, and there's challenge again, that thing that's always going to be there in some form or another. So if we have our foundation, if we have our understanding, our ideas, we know how our ideas, our understandings, our intentions all work together and creating more context, right? So during this talk, here's this idea of growing healthy mental habitat, and here's some understandings around it. So we've got the seed, we've got the soil. It's going to be up to everybody else how much water you give this class after the physical part is done. You know, how much of this sticks, and that's the part that everyone, hopefully gets to take something home and nurture part of that. But this is an example of what we basically just did is we had an idea and we created context around it, more understanding. And then the water's up to the individual. And then the last part, the sunlight, is when we have an understanding that we've been feeding, that we've been watering, that we've had this relationship with, when it comes time for an action item, it's easier for us because we have a foundation built. We have this mental habitat of wellness, of not eating Twinkies anymore. And so when we think about it and keep that cycling through our mental habitat, it's easier to push that away because I've already invested energy in it, in my thought process, in my mental habitat. I already have an investment. I've taken time to think about all the reasons why I want to quit processed sugar. So I've already got an investment. To put it in contemporary terms, remember, energy is our first commerce. So, here's a parallel to contemporary society. Invest in yourself. Invest in your own healthy mental habitat. Watch where your energy goes. ROI, return on investment. So
On yourself.
our own business.
Mhm.
Oh, Business of Being Human, by the way. That's the name of the book. And so when we talk about corporate wellness, there's natural parallels going through everything. But yeah, we're our own business. We're our own ecosystem. We invest our energy. And so now we've got this investment, and see that's a meditation. That's an idea. So if we nurture that, if we give energy, if we, write that down or build a refrigerator magnet or whatever, and say, look, we're our own ecosystem. We are investing in ourselves. Oh, that might help us remember about our intention and keeping intention. And then we have a place for better things to grow. And the more we build a healthy mental habitat, there's already going to be existing soil because we use the same soil to grow, disengage from, quit looking at the clock, quit relating to the clock. And we use that to quit eating the Twinkie. And we use quit eating the Twinkie to quit relating to the clock and quit relying on just solely, a doctor diagnosis. Again, listen to the doctor, but don't take that for the only thing. Don't let don't let anyone else's opinion be the only thing, right? Your autonomy, growing our autonomy and what feels right on an instinctual level. We've got our instinct, we've got our cognitive thought process, we've got our emotional intelligence, our ancestral wisdom, right? We've got our physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, our physical instinct, our mental, our cognitive thought process, our emotional intelligence, our spiritual, our ancestral wisdom. Use all these facets. Oh, now look, we can build a habitat that's conducive to that. So that in itself is a seed, a 4-part seed. So if we have a mental habitat that's conducive to making sure we're in tune with those 4 parts of our intellect and our intellectual process and our data gathering process, that's going to help us grow more. And all these things, all these cycles add up. Lots of healthy soil, understanding, foundation, plus lots of seeds, ideas, compatible ideas, plus lots of water, intention, meditation, energy, plus lots of sunlight, lots of action. That's a functioning, healthy mental habitat.
So
So
you have to understand.
yeah. Um, so there's lots of things about the we kind of went through basics of a habitat. Um, there's some other things that are important when we're growing our healthy mental habitat. It's still there's reflections of our natural habitat, of course. And this is a huge thing. Understanding, and I say natural laws, and that term's really been misused a lot. Um, but I'll explain the way I use it, right? So we talked about all these things, but we are not separate from the environment that we evolved in. So if there's these evolutionary forces and naturally occurring entities, and so I say connection to everything, Hamataki, connection to everything, sustainability, okay, challenge, ebb flow cycles, and balance. And all those things work together. And so we're going to have all those things in our mental habitat. We're going to have ebb and flow. The intention isn't just a faucet that you turn on and let the water run forever. But there's an inorganic item in our soil because that's what we grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
So did everyone catch that part? These things that we're accustomed to because of the life that we grew up in and our parents grew up in, our parents' grew up in, right? Contemporary society have these
The
things
collective.
don't that don't mimic natural ecosystems. And so now here we are trying to help our natural ecosystem, and we don't have any contemporary models, right? So the water, you turn the water on to whatever temperature that you want it to and whatever volume you want it to. But that's not how our intention works. And a lot of people relate how have a bad relationship with themselves simply because they don't have any cues with the natural habitat. And you'll hear that, oh,
Or
why
the
can't I just quit? Here's addiction 101. Just quit, just quit, just quit. It doesn't work like that. Nothing works like that. There's no just. What's that one? You better just don't. When you start saying just, you better just stop. And this is more of understanding. And we understand understanding. Who has a conversation? We said understanding a lot, but what's our understanding around understanding? Right? Because we said that we have contemporary society has a lot of ideas and ideologies, but what's a true understanding? Like, how do things work? When we have information, how does just information grow into understanding? Well, if we take our information and we take it through our cognitive thought process, right? Just objective thought processing doesn't make sense. And that can be, a real long rabbit hole. But that plus our instinct, plus our emotional intelligence, how does it resonate with us on these ways? Plus the very fluid ancestral wisdom. But to have information get processed into understanding, right? There's a good lesson about worms then, right? Worms go through and they process things. And when it comes out the other side, it's better. So information versus understanding. Has our information been processed? Right? Has the information actually gone through cognitive thought process? Lessons from worm. I know some of you that know me have heard some
and that's how
worm
you
stuff.
get the pathogens. You make sure your soil doesn't have pathogens in it.
Exactly. if you go through it, right. So what Gray just said is here's a meditation, be the worm. And this is a lesson on boundaries. What Gray just said is a boundary. If you're the worm, if every single thing you do, right, here's this recent meditation on boundaries is make a boundary with the collective. This was the Growing Healthy Boundaries class. Make a boundary with collective and push it out, keep it out, grow a boundary, stay in tune with that boundary. You're going to keep giving energy to it. Imagine a suggestion box and put two of them out there on the outside of the boundary. But one, so the collective consciousness can give you suggestions, and another, so you can give collective consciousness the collective suggestions. And don't let anything into your ecosystem unless you thoroughly review it. And maybe you won't get time. You're not going to be able to. There's prioritization. Oh, also, there's the lesson to our finite resource. We don't have enough energy to literally go through everything. We have to use our instincts, pick and choose. You know, what's just plain outlier bullshit. The Earth's flat. I don't need to think about that. I'm not going to process that. But some other things we might spend some more time on. So the lesson from boundary, keep everything out. Keep everything out, growing healthy boundaries. Put the suggestion box, because we're not shutting anything out completely. That doesn't work. We're infinitely and intimately connected to everybody else. And we want our input there to be there too. We're not just listening to what collective says. We're also giving our input to collective. You know? So that's a whole nother thing on boundaries. But if that edge of the boundary is the mouth of the worm, then what we choose to take in gets thoroughly digested, thoroughly analyzed, and then comes out the other side better. And it's just understanding. We understood what parts of this idea were, more accurate than others. What part of this idea works? Where did this come from? Just understanding. And understanding isn't a black or white. There's no yes or no's. It's understanding. And when we did the limits of science, we changed the scientific method around. So at the end, contemporary science says at the end, you have a conclusion. And we changed it to an understanding, because that better reflects the fluidity and the diversity of understanding. It's not black and white. We can always add more understanding to that. What's that, Gray?
Oh, you had changed it because it's continuum understanding.
Yeah.
It's always all connected, all, metakoyasin, that's always like continuum.
Yeah.
Limits of science, the understanding, the conclusion is understanding. I like that how you changed it, because it's continuous understanding, and then again, always having to look at your soil, the control group, whatever that may be. Or
yeah. And add to that understanding. We can always take in more information to add to that understanding.
Yeah.
I'll even play the devil's advocate in my own shit here for a minute, because I bash on government money and clocks. Because is it bad to say that, oh, here's some ideas on how a society functions, optimally? Is it bad to write those things down? No, not intrinsically. The bad part is the abuse of that, the overuse of that, to understand the limits of something that was thought about in this time versus what's going on in real time, not to mention 200 years later. I won't bash too much of that. Is something wrong with printed currency? No, it's an inanimate object. We could use rocks or shells or dog shit. We could trade dog shit and there'd still be capitalism. It's not the printed currency's fault. It's the abuse of that. It's just a value placeholder. If Gray comes over and, helps me do yard work for a day, I give her, half a dozen cool looking rocks. She goes to Target on the way home, you know, picks up
That'd
some,
be, oh, that'd be so cool if you could just
picks up,
trade.
you know, picks up new pair of chocolates, new pair of sandals for summer,
Walmart
it's the
wouldn't
same
exist. It
thing.
would be like a trading post instead.
Well, it's value placeholder.
Fuck Walmart.
It's a value
I
placeholder.
mean, never mind.
And
Wrong
it,
line.
and it, and it helps trade, especially, you know, e- especially today when everyone's trading and it's just, and also to keep track, if I
Mhm.
had 50 people, helping me with my yard and different people doing different things, and for different values and for different times, let's get out the hash marks and start kind of keeping track. So nothing wrong with that, you know, and a clock. Oh, well, let's see here. Um, especially now, um, some people are in different time zones and I say, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this meeting, you know, in the evening, right when it gets dark. Oh, and everyone not in my time zone is, yeah, where were you? Um, you know, or, if it's cloudy or whatever, or, so it's understanding the limits of those things, but that's the understanding, and that allows context, and that allows some more ideas about these things, and not to say, going back full circle, not right, wrong, it's an understanding, and that understanding helps us grow forward. And that's a good, healthy soil to understand about understanding. What is an understanding? So there's some understanding about understanding, growing healthy soil, um, growing healthy mental habitat. And I always think about um, Jack Sparrow. The problem you have isn't with the problem. What does he say now?
How does that go?
Your problem isn't the problem. The problem is the problem you have with the problem.
Nice.
You
The
know?
drunk guy?
Yeah. Jack Sparrow.
Yeah.
I was trying to
Fuck,
remember
hey, Jack Sparrow.
who that is. I'm all, who is that? Oh,
I know. You're like, how did I even know that? Because I
the pirate.
but I mean, you got to see that one.
Yeah.
But a lot of people, it's like, and so that's challenge. It's like there's a million different like surface level challenges, but the main thing is just embracing challenge on general principles. Look at our species. Look how much challenge has been, um, um, man, almost erased from contemporary society. And look how critical that is to our own to our own integrity, to our own volition, to
Mm.
growing ourselves, that context, that relationship with ourself. That's the first challenge, right? And so there's not a lot of models of challenge in contemporary society. Here we are, turn the water on. It's like, well, that's not a reflection of how life is. That's not a reflection of how organic life is. So when we understand more about how organic life is, then we understand ourselves. And this is, I'll repeat some things from Wildlife Biology 101, is that you don't understand the organism unless you understand the environment that the organism evolved in. Well, that means we
Mhm.
don't understand ourselves unless we understand our environment. And that's our first and foremost, our base layer, our control group is the natural environment. And then we understand these things in contemporary society, these inorganic things. And I like to say that's a habitat because that's an inorganic. I won't go back and review that whole class now. But a lot of people look at the environment in what's my life, what's around in my life, but they don't understand they need to look at us as a species, just like we do everything else. Again, looking at the humans through the lens of wildlife biology is how does the species function? So we got to understand how the species functions before we understand how the individual functions, right? Much better angle. If we understand the whole scope of things, it's a lot easier to look in than to look out, right? Dude, that should be our next Instagram post. It's easier to look inward than to look outward, right? If you don't look in, you're not going to be able to look out for everything. And that's that understanding. There's just so many things to understanding how we actually function as part of a species, as part of collective, and giving back that way. And that natural cycle of, give and receive. As we grow, we're giving back. As we understand that energetic imprint is, people say raising vibration is raising the flow. All this is, here's our community, here's our external habitat. Talking about things like this is increasing our understanding that we'll go and will contribute that back to other parts of our community and back to our other interconnected communities and habitats. So connection to everything, challenge, and all those things and the ebb and flow, those all add up to balance. People think of balance being, sometimes I think people think or don't think, people have a inaccurate concept of balance of being like in the middle, but it's probably never in the middle. It's opposing forces that balance, like we need light and day. We need sun, and then we need that cooling down. We need that ebb and flow. We need high energy periods, and we need rest. So that's what creates balance. So the cycles create balance. The tree needs to lose its leaves so it can grow them again. And isn't that a whole, as we talk about growth, talk about human development and using nature to understand our own personal development? We grow and like we shed, and there's all kinds of things and metamorphoses, and snake shed and crawdads shed, and butterflies, of course, molt and turn into other things, and frogs transform and all that. But as a tree, we shed leaves, so that creates soil so new seeds can grow and then grow more leaves, and there's more leaves contributing to the soil. And so understanding actual interconnected ecosystems, getting back to this intention, it's not just a water faucet that we turn on and give random ideas, because that's not what's actually happening. We have to find a flow. We have to align with the flow. And there's a billion different lessons of salmon and fish and flow and dams and all kinds of stuff like that. But we do have to understand natural environments. We have to understand ebb flow cycles, balance. And, there's a huge false narrative in contemporary society that's flow, get, but that's not a real cycle. There's a give, there's an ebb. And when I talk about corporate burnout, these are one of the things. And some of the better businesses are starting to do better at understanding the human-centric components to their enterprise, and that people need rest, people need a more holistic environment. And then the other thing about understanding how we really work is that it needs to make sense. Most people feel out of place on a general spectrum. They feel like we feel that sense of misplacement, not contributing, not connecting to others, not connecting to ourselves, not being able to make a difference, all those kind of things. So there's an internal need to align with wellness and that sustainability. So contemporary society obviously doesn't have a sustainability quotient, but that's what everything on this planet, to anthropomorphize it, that's what everything on this planet's main goal is sustainability. And that's what all these forces of challenge is helping align things for their sustainability. And let's see here, it was in a workshop or a talk or something, but the place of challenge and the challenge of life or death, challenge gets in the way of the things we need so we can grow into something that is capable of getting the things we need. I'll say that again too. Because challenge is a super important thing. Embracing challenge is, man, that's key. That's key. You know, with that intention, embracing challenge, and then making sure our energy goes to the right place. Challenge, the challenge of life and death, the challenge of life or death facilitates life. So challenge gets in the way of things we need. Okay. So with that, we embrace challenge, we engage challenge to grow ourselves through challenge to get the things that we need. Here's challenge. Here's us, right? And so there's the challenge. What we need is over here, and we're here. So we grow through challenge so we can get what we need. And that's how challenge grows us. So challenge is a key essential to life. So if we're not connecting to ourselves, if we don't feel that, you know, man, I've been wanting to quit eating sweets now for a long time and haven't done it. So that's a challenge. So why? And so embracing some of these bigger pictures and getting some of the inorganic items out of our soil, like the water faucet, right? There's the water faucet, because you think you can just give energy to this idea and it's going to work. But that's not it. There's alignment. There's understanding. So there's a certain way that things work and a certain way that they don't work. And that's because we're on a planet and we're here, and the planet already had these systems in place, and we need to understand those systems. And when we understand those systems, then we can see, when we recognize them, we can see, oh, this is in us, and not only in us, but like mostly us. All these things are, you know, all these things developed us, right? We're probably, I'll just do this little cartoon here, is that we're probably 99.999% connected to everything: sustainability, challenge, balance, ebb, flow, and cycles. That's all we really are. Because those are the things that made us on this planet. So if we understand some of those things, when we're doing our intention, when we're watering our ideas, when we're trying to grow, when we're trying to grow our wellness, here's some more understanding to how we can align with ourselves and grow healthy mental habitat. And we'll call it there. There's the class. Thanks.
Woo, time for the after party.
Thank
Kraig.
you.